Your neighbor tells you about the unstable man in the cul-de-sac who claims to have been abducted by aliens. And then there's the woman in town who claims to see Bigfoot all the time. Your boss, who you greatly admire, confides in you that he has started speaking with his wife daily when he gets home from work. She died 8 years ago. It's hard to believe this stuff, and you write these stories off as overactive imaginations. Are these people seeking attention, or are they a bit unstable? No matter what you think, if you're like me, you walk away wondering, what if that was true? The What If It's True podcast features stories by ordinary people like you and me. Something has happened to them, something so strange they are in agony unless they tell others. My name is Cameron Buckner, and the What If It's True podcast is available at whatifitstruepodcast.com and on all available podcast apps.
Welcome to Beast TV. What was that? You better get a fresh dip and buckle up. Welcome to Beast TV. You're not Larry Porch II.
Man, I got him tied up down in the basement.
Debbie must have paid you to do that.
I'm telling you, man. No, I'm just sitting here with the moose on the Beast Show.
Well, we are tickled that you could fill in for Larry. And this is a pre-recorded podcast, but we will premiere this podcast. So if you're watching it right now, you're watching the premiere. So,
as usual, hello to everybody in the chat and all the listeners. And what's cool is you and I will probably get to be in the chat for this show. So that's what's always neat. So,
absolutely.
So I won't have to watch myself on here. But this will be a great show.
It's going to be a great show. Did you want to introduce the guest that we have on, or would you like?
Will.
Okay.
But I figure we'll cover a lot, so man, we'll just jump into it right here. Jami and Jenny King's on tonight, and I had a chance to talk to him a little bit. Mark has done a lot more research on him, so to speak. But we're going to bring them on here, and it's kind of neat because I know we have a lot of people that are into, paranormal stuff, and if you're into Bigfoot stuff, you kind of people see a lot of things Bigfooting that could possibly be paranormal related, or maybe that's what your brain attributes it to, and we're going to get into a little bit of that stuff with them, and they're going to be a lot more well versed than a lot of us on this particular stuff. But anyway, let's get them on here. And but the great thing is they're hikers, so I can relate to them. They're avid outdoorsmen, and they had a Bigfoot encounter. So that's going to be the cool thing. So it's good to have them on.
Welcome, Jami and Jenny King.
Hello, thank you for having us.
Hey guys.
It's really great to have you on here, and it's great to have a husband and wife team that's on here. And yeah, it's very cool. We have met a lot of husband and wife teams over the years. And but before we get started, let me just first start with Jami. And Jami, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm 51 years old. I went to school in Europe, so I went to college in Europe. So like my backpacking and all of that started probably before that, but I really got the experience to hike in the Tatra Mountains and in Germany and Austria. So I've hiked a lot overseas, and then in the United States, like I've hiked in most of the Northwest, not in the Pacific Northwest, but it's just something that Jenny and I have done for quite a while: backpacking, hiking,
Camping.
camping.
Jeannie, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, well, I'm Jenny King, and I grew up around the Shenango Valley, in the Shenango Dam. That's where we usually go hiking quite a bit, down at the Shenango, and we also do a lot of camping. We just were camping last weekend in the Allegheny National Forest, which is always awesome. Even though we didn't really have very much activity, it was really cool. And I won't say how old I am.
We won't ask.
I hate to jump into it this quick, but y'all keep mentioning the Allegheny, and that's where, you had something happen to you, right?
We have had experiences there. This last, Memorial Day, yeah, Labor Day weekend when we went, we didn't really have anything happen, but in previous times we've had like where we had Howl.
Actually, our encounter happened not very far from where we live. So it happened in an area called Shenango Reservoir. So it's in Pennsylvania, but we live in Ohio, so we're right on the border of Pennsylvania and Ohio. And Jenny and I both grew up in Pennsylvania.
When was this first time?
I think it was like 2009.
2009, because it was like right after my father had passed away. Do you want me to talk about the Bigfoot encounter, or?
Yes.
That's right. And tell it to us like you're showing us a movie script. Is what I always say.
Okay.
Because a lot of people, I always say this. A lot of people listen to this. They won't be in the chat. They'll listen to this while they're driving. They listen to this at work. And man, paint us a picture.
Okay, I'm gonna start out by telling you that our encounter is pretty different than most people, because there's different layers to what happened with our encounter that made us think differently. But what happened was, my father had lived with us for a year. He had bone cancer, and
sorry, that's right.
He passed away. So what happened is Jenny was, she can tell it maybe better, but I mean, I'll get into the part where what happened is I was in a huge depression, and I wasn't doing the things that I had normally done, because my father passed away. And Jenny's like, you need to get out and do things that you were doing, because she saw me as like the Pink Floyd video where I'm the guy sitting in the chair that really wasn't doing anything, and it, like a depression took over me. And this day that we had our encounter, we hiked down this turkey trail. But before we hiked down the turkey trail, I said a prayer, and I said this prayer. I said, Dad, if you're here, give me a sign that you're here, because I really hadn't been doing things. So it was the first day that I actually got out and felt like nature was healing me again. And on this day, that was part of the story. So I said this prayer, Dad, if you're here, give me a sign that you're here. And, I forgot all about it. And then Jenny and I hiked this turkey trail all the way down to this reservoir. And we get to this reservoir, and we had our is basically always out in front of us, and she was always like doing her beagle thing, which is like sniffing the ground. But on this occasion, she came up to me and she was whining and she wanted picked up, and I picked her up. And as soon as I picked her up, I'm holding her because I'm thinking she got stung with a bee. So I'm holding her, and all of a sudden Jenny and I are standing there, and we heard this vocalization in front of us, and it was this long, drawn out wailing sound, like howling, wailing sound. And literally, I'm thinking prehistoric. I'm not thinking anything but this doesn't sound like anything that I've ever heard hiking in the United States, hiking in Europe. I've never heard anything like this in my life. And as we're standing there and I'm holding the dog, this vocalization was so loud, we could feel it in the ground below us. So
You feel it in your body.
you could feel it in your body. And I'm watching a puddle on the ground ripple. And, in my mind, I'm thinking prehistoric, and I'm thinking very much like Jurassic Park. And I've heard other people say the same exact thing.
Yeah, because we didn't know what it was. We just heard something that sounded like a dinosaur, and we were just like, wow.
So, Jenny and I are standing there, and we're watching trees in front of us shake, and it's sort of like up on a ridge line. Wherever this sound was originating was on a ridge line, and we were kind of lower, and it was echoing down at us. And then I remember looking at Jenny, and she was looking at me, and we really couldn't formulate words. Like, we were just really in shock. So what happened was, I think we made this weird agreement that we're just going to get out. And
Yeah, we started walking out.
so we turned around and we started hiking out. And as we're hiking out, you could hear this thing behind us, and it was making this whooshing sound, like whoa, whoa. It was this really strange sound, and you could almost feel like the energy of the whole thing. And it seemed like it was on both sides of us at one point. And I remember we finally made it back to our vehicle, which was a pretty long hike. And the whole time the whole time I'm carrying the dog. So the dog really didn't even want down on the ground. But I'm telling you this story because I want you to realize that Jenny and I, the way we think is maybe a little bit different than most people, but we made it back to our vehicle. But the beginning of the story was, I told you that I said a prayer to my dad. So when we got home, we finally got back to our vehicle, and we got home and we really started talking about what we experienced. We didn't know. So we started looking up animal noises, and we couldn't find anything that matched it. And I'm not sure who told us, because we had called someone else and they told us, why don't you look up Bigfoot vocalization? And we looked up this vocalization, any vocalization that was Bigfoot, Sierra Sounds came up. It was nothing like that. But then we came to this one that was called the Ohio Howl, and it matched.
Well, it matched, but it just was not near as loud as what we heard in person. But it was the same drawn out, like everything, pitch, everything. We're like, that sounds like it. Just what we heard in that moment, physically where we were, you could actually feel it in your body. It was just unreal. But
so I mean, like that, when we heard that recording and we realized, I started researching that recording, and it was recorded in Wellsville, Ohio, which is 40 miles from the Shenango where we had our encounter. So then I realized whatever this was is a noise that's been heard in this area, and potentially it could be Bigfoot. I didn't say Bigfoot when this first happened. I don't know how it came about, but dinosaur was the only thing that came to mind. So I'm going to explain the other part of it, which is the very, very beginning. So days after the encounter, I was dissecting it over and over in my mind, and I was on my way to work, and I remember this voice came to me that said, if you want to remember or you want to find the answer, go back to the beginning. And it was kind of in my dad's voice. I don't know how the universe works like this, but it was my dad's voice, and it said, go back to the beginning. And I mentally, in my mind, I'm driving my car and I'm driving down the road, and I remembered that I said a prayer, Dad, if you're here, give me a sign. And I literally, and it's kind of hard to say this without getting emotional, but I literally had to pull my car off the side of the road, because I loved my parents. I lost both my parents in a very short amount of time, but it was the last memory that I had with my dad is very strange. But the very last memory I had with my dad was he asked me to take him outside, and he wanted to listen to the birds and look at the trees. And then he said, take me, and I'm just going to say it exactly how he said it, take me in the goddamn house, I'm done. you know, and like I'm literally brought him in the house and I gave him a stack of movies that my sister from Maryland gave me. And I said, pick a movie, Dad, and I'll just watch a movie, try to relax him. And he picked a movie and I put it in the DVD player and I'm watching my dad watch this movie. And the last movie that he watched was Harry and the Hendersons. And I think I had to pull my car off the side of the road and I was very emotional because if I wanted a sign from my dad, it couldn't have been any clearer. You know, if I'm praying to God, give me a sign, it couldn't have been any clearer. And, you know, at that point in my life, I was very angry with God and I was very angry with the universe, but something about this experience, and I can't let go of it, sparked this thing inside of me that said, you know, like, we don't know how the universe works. And you know what? I believe that we're completely energy. And I'm not saying that Bigfoot and this prayer went hand in hand, but I think something was trying to get my attention. So I started looking at Bigfoot not only, and I know we might sound kooky to people, but I don't think of Bigfoot as purely physical. I think of it sort of as a consciousness, and I think of it as a vibrational frequency. And I'm seeing, you know, in the Bigfoot community, there's different factions of people that believe in Bigfoot and how they believe in Bigfoot. And I believe that nobody has, you know, a definitive answer. So Jenny and I say to ourselves, we're experimenting with the field. And we started this micro study where we're deciding that if we're going to find the answers, it's going to be where we had our encounter. And I'm going to say this, we had 2 encounters. We took our friend back to the same location to show him where this happened. And this is maybe 2 or 3 weeks later. I can't remember the time frame, but we took him back and we hiked all the way down to the ravine again, showed him where we had this vocalization because he is like Fish and Game and Wildlife, so he knows that area very well. So we took him down there and showed him the area. And on the way out, we had what sounded like a dog bark, what sounded like a man talking, and then nothing came out of the brush. So I said, Jenny, get the dogs. We had both of our dogs at the time. I said, put them on the leash and I'm going to go walk over and see what's over there because nobody's coming out. But I'm thinking another dog is going to come out. And at that point, my friend Roger and I stood there and we watched this thing stand straight up. And what I saw and what Roger saw was the back of a head. And it was very conical and it was covered in hair. And then, you know, I think at that point, I realized, you know, what we're dealing with is something that is very physical, but to me was super spiritual. And then our background, like Jenny and I have a background that she can tell you, but before all this happened, we were slightly on a different frequency too. We're both paranormal investigators, but we're both paranormal tour guides. So we worked at Mansfield Reformatory in Ohio, and we worked at Haunted Hillview Manor where we were tour guides. So we're very familiar with frequencies, and we're very familiar with the unknown, and we're very familiar and we're not afraid of things. You know, we're pretty fearless. But, you know, we've had many encounters after this, and we had a great experience in Hocking Hills that Jenny can tell you about. But it's put us on this path of like experimenting with the field, and we'll get more into like what we do with our research. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Give it to me.
She's better at this anyway.
I
don't
have
know about
questions though.
I wouldn't say I'm necessarily better, but if you mean like we just been going out, like you said, doing the micro study around the Shenango, and the Shenango is pretty good size. I mean, you know, there's lots of pockets here and there. We can hike here, hike there, and get
Now,
into
where
places
is that? Where's that
sometimes
at
it's just like
exactly?
a game trail. You know, it's not like you're hiking on, you know, a paved path or anything. We're on trails that, you know, the animals are on. So, but yeah, we're out there quite a bit, and since we had our first experience, we just kept going out more and more. And then we started noticing, okay, well, what's this? You know, we found our first structure and we were like, wow, what is this? Like, we know that people have found stuff like that before. And we're like, oh, this is fascinating. So, you know, we just keep going out there and we found like how many structures now?
I mean, I have notes. I keep
Quite a few.
detailed notes on the structures. I make drawings of the structures. I count the sticks within the structures. Jenny does this on her own too. She'll hike on her own. We're pretty detailed with our note taking.
Man, we have a lot of people that are into paranormal stuff, that are listeners, that are in chat and stuff like that. So that's one real reason when me and Mark were talking about having y'all on. I want to go back to that first encounter though, because we're Bigfoot people though, first and foremost. I found it interesting that you said when you first heard that thing, you thought of a dinosaur or something like that. Now, I'm not sure that people, and I'm not very familiar with this area. What's the terrain like there? When we talk about mountains here, we're talking about a whole different kind of mountains, but what's it like there where you were at?
Well, it's definitely more flat. Where the Shenango, where we had our first experience, of course there's a lot of trees, there's a lot of thorn bushes, a lot of brush.
There's a lot of pine. There's a lot of pine. There's a lot of maple trees. The thing about it is the time of year was kind of like right now. It was the end of August, early September, and what you have is a lot of thick underbrush. So it's very hard to move in a lot of places unless you're on a game trail.
Oh, okay, I get that.
Yeah, it can get pretty thick. Yeah.
Pennsylvania is kind of like wetlands, so you have a lot of swampy areas in western Pennsylvania.
And I know a lot of questions I ask. I don't know. Maybe it's just for myself or to fill in the story, which may seem irrelevant. But how far in were you? Because I know things can happen anywhere. It doesn't. I'm not saying it adds any validity or invalidity to the story, but how far in there were you? Because, man, having to turn around and hike out with that going on, I mean, really, I get chill bumps thinking about some of the places I hike into, thinking, gosh, if I had to hike out with something following me, ooh, that would be nerve-wracking.
Yeah, well, fortunately, we weren't too far in. Would you say it's about 3/4 of a mile? It's probably not even a mile.
Right, like it's where we parked is a handicapped entrance for people that maybe I think there's hunters that are handicapped. So there's a handicapped access that goes back to this turkey trail, and basically that's what we were on. We were on this turkey
and it's not paved or anything.
Preservation area.
It's all they mow it or brush hog it, but it's not paved or anything. And then when you get down to where we had our experience, you have the Shenango River, and then you have like a creek that was feeding into, going into the Shenango. Or wait, is the other way around? No, it's going into the Shenango.
It's a creek feeding into the lake. So Jenny kind of has it wrong. There's a Shenango River, and then there's a big lake that is attached to it. But the area that we had our encounter in, it's kind of like weirdly twisted because there was a tornado that went through in 1985. We were like 15 years old at the time. So this tornado twisted a lot of things around. So what you find is the terrain is very strange. Like it didn't come back like Mount St. Helens had the eruption. This area was tornadic. So the trees have grown in really weird ways.
But behind where we had our experience, remember there's all those dips and valleys back there.
Right. Like she said, there's a lot of, I call them hollows. So there's a lot of hollows that go through there. And basically the Shenango itself is Lenape land. So it's Native American indigenous people land, but the Army Corps of Engineers owns it. So it's basically open to anyone to fish and hunt there.
See, I find that interesting because, Mark, and I know you're thinking the same thing, and a lot of people, listeners, thinking the same thing. When they're describing the land, and here's a river, and here's another creek that runs into it, and all this is happening down in these low-lying areas, even though they say it's flat, that's why I ask questions. I find this kind of stuff interesting. It's all things to just add into your brain.
Now, tell us about your experience with frequencies, because we will get into this later on, but some of the recordings that you have got are pretty amazing. And so just kind of give us your background on sound frequencies.
I mean,
But I don't know. We're both into like tones, like frequencies, like 432 hertz, 528 hertz. It's something I kind of meditate to.
I mean, we're both like into yoga and meditation, so we're into the frequencies. But our background was in paranormal investigating at Mansfield Reformatory, Mansfield Prison, and Haunted Hillview Manor. So when I say frequencies and stuff like that, infrasound, basically, I've learned now is part of what they say Bigfoot communicates in, or there's lots of animals that communicate and make sounds within infrasound, which is below 20 Hz. So we started experimenting with frequencies. So we started changing it up a little bit. Like, I know how BFRO works. I know how other Bigfoot research groups work. But the recordings that I recorded in the Allegheny National Forest, I was with a lot of BFRO type people that think that basically Bigfoot is only a primate. And I appreciate that. And I believe that nobody has the real answer. So I have a recorder that I use during paranormal investigating. So I pulled this recorder out, and during the day on this trip to the Alleghenies, we had heard things. We had been basically camping in an area that's a logging road. So it's in the Allegheny National Forest, which in itself has a very interesting past. Like, the name Allegheny got its name from these creatures called the Allegui, which were these hairy giants that lived amongst the Indians. They're called Allegui. And, like, the day that I did these recordings, I thought, why not frequency? Why not vibrational frequency? And research this on a paranormal level. And I'm just thinking outside the box in that, if Bigfoot could communicate, why not? So I started asking these questions in the dark after we had heard these noises in our camp. And, like, I don't know why I did it the way I did it, but I like to ask questions. Like, if I'm in a ghost hunt, I'm going to ask questions that I'm going to maybe already know the answer to get an intelligent response. So when I asked, do you know the name of this forest? I already knew the name of the forest, but I wanted to see if something would come across the recorder. And I'm not saying that my recordings are Bigfoot. There's something. And, like, I get excited when I hear something like that because, like, I want science to get on board ghost hunting, and I want science to get on board with Bigfoot and other things. Like, to me, that's exciting. Jenny and I both get very excited introducing the world to, like, things that are outside of our human senses, which are, sight, hearing, taste, all of the senses. But I believe we have more senses than that. But when I said, do you know the name of the forest? And it gave me an intelligent response, that told me that something existed there that was, very cool. So then, like, I didn't hear that as I was recording, but after, when I did the playback, and I'm standing in the forest with my friend Scott and his daughter Kendra. And Kendra was, I don't know, maybe like 8 years old at the time, and, pretty fearless little kid. But we really stood there and we did this experiment with, like, recording as a paranormal investigator in the middle of the woods. And I got responses. I don't know. It's kind of exciting. And, like, my hope is that maybe one person that's listening to your podcast, Beast TV, can resonate. It'll resonate with them. And, like, it's exciting. And if I can share this with people, I'm happy that I can share it.
I tell you, it's amazing. And we've got 4 clips that you have sent us. And so I would like to play them one at a time. And then after we play them, each one, then I'll let you give the backstory on them.
Okay. Sounds good.
Can you tell me the name of this forest? I can hear you off to my right. Is that you? Yes or no? Can you tell me the name of this forest? I can hear you off to my right. Is that you? Yes or no? Can you tell me the name of this forest? I can hear you off to my right. Is that you? Yes or no?
Now, could you hear that while that was going on
Oh yeah.
with with your ears? Could you hear that?
Oh, I think you meant right now.
No, we could not hear. Like when I asked the question, you hear my voice as my voice. So when I did the playback, this recorder records in basically an infrasound, and it captures things that are below 20 Hz. And I did not hear that until I did the playback. And I only know how the recorder works because we've used them during investigations at both locations and other locations that we've ghost hunted. So I know how it works. And my voice is my voice. The other voice comes across in frequency.
Jamie, what's the difference in this and an EVP?
There's really no
Yeah, it's the
difference.
same thing.
No difference at all.
Yeah.
Okay, but when you do an EVP, the electronic voice phenomenon, basically where
Right.
you and I are having a conversation, we have a tape recorder going, and when we listen to it later, we hear a voice that we didn't hear with our human ears at the time, but it's on the tape. That's what an EVP is.
Right.
What's the difference? Is it a different recorder? Or I'm trying to understand, are you just recording some type of frequencies and that's it?
Um,
Well, if you mean like when you're ghost hunting, you kind of ask questions, get a response, and then you
Right.
rewind the tape or play it back, and then if you get an answer, you can hear it. As far as like for Bigfooting, it's basically the same thing.
I think too, like it's energy.
Is
Okay.
is it a regular tape recorder like we would use out in the woods?
It's a very good question.
It's not.
Okay.
It's a very coveted, I'm just gonna say coveted recorder that's very hard to get. Like it sold back in the early 90s for like $8. Now it sells for over like $3,000. And the reason being is because a regular recorder will record your voice as your voice. It'll record other things the way they come through. But this specific recorder, comes through below 20 Hz, and it comes through as frequency. So like if I'm ghost hunting and I'm using like
See, now I understood. I was finally getting him to explain it the way everybody could understand it. It is, man. Those iPads are rough. Mark.
This pad on this chair, I guess.
Okay. Just go ahead and pick.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. It must be just like an internet connection or something like that.
Okay.
And you really were explaining it exactly the way I wanted everybody to hear it. This is the difference in this type of recorder and what y'all are using.
Right.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yep,
just
go
go
ahead.
ahead and pick back up.
Okay, so the recorder that we use is it's sold in the 1990s for like $8. Now it's very coveted in the ghost hunting community, and it sells for over $3,000, and it's very hard to get a hold of them. But Jenny and I have access to them via some of our friends that own the recorder that knew about this like I can say this, Jenny and I have been doing paranormal investigating. So a lot of what we've done, we've learned from people that come in ghost hunting, like the people that would come in and we would be giving them a tour. We would be watching people use equipment. We had access to buildings, haunted locations where we could experiment with the field. So basically, we had this great opportunity to learn. And, like Jenny and I use what we know. So we're both paranormal investigators, and what we know is how to work with energy. So that recorder, and I'm not saying that that's Bigfoot that I recorded in the Allegheny National Forest, but I am saying it's super fascinating that I got responses back. And those aren't the only recordings that I have using that recorder. I've had other recordings where I've asked, who am I communicating with? And it's come across names. I've had names, but I've also said, what am I looking for? In another recording, I said, what am I out here in the woods looking for? And on the recorder, it said Bigfoot. Like, it knows. Like, it's strange to say this to people without sounding crazy. And, like, I don't want to sound crazy, but I'm also not a person out there saying that I know for a fact this is the answer. But I know for a fact that Jenny and I, what we do and how we do it, I feel like we are onto something a little bit different than most people in the Bigfoot community. And, it's exciting to just be in the field and be open enough to say, I'm okay if I'm wrong and I'm okay if I'm right.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, let's listen to this second recording.
Are you afraid of humans? Are you afraid of humans? Are you afraid of humans?
Wow. So you did not actually hear that until
No,
you went back and reviewed it.
that's what we do. We record, and we record very short. So we're recording certain questions, and like I think I might know the answer to a question for an intelligent response, but on that particular recording, I did not expect that answer. Sometimes I pretty much know I'm going to get a response just by the way the energy feels in the forest or wherever I'm at. There's a feeling to it. And I think Jenny and I are both pretty sensitive, and we're both energy working type people, like eco type therapy. Like, we go into the woods and we know how to heal ourselves with nature, and connect with nature with meditation and different things that we do.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. Okay, let's play this next one.
Are there? Do you have human DNA? Are there? Do you have human DNA? Are there? Do you have human DNA?
Wow, what do you think about that, Bama?
I find that interesting. I'm a Bigfoot person, but I have friends that have a real organized ghost hunting group. And I happen to live in a county that's really historic. It's a Civil War. Uh, a lot of Civil War stuff took place here. So there's a lot of historic homes that were used as, uh, battleground hospitals on the spur of the moment. There's lots of businesses that used to be civil. So I do a bit of stuff with them, but it's not really, my passion or anything. All to say that uh, we carry recorders, we listen for EVPs, we ask questions, and that's the real thing is asking a question and getting an intelligent response. It's the whole thing. That's really the thing that you're looking for. Uh, I don't want to get off on that too much, but just having a recorder out and just picking things up is one thing. But and those guys are really good at. They can hear things I can't hear. Just like in the Bigfoot world. I mean, I'm out with Mark and they hear lots of things that I can't hear. But yeah, I find that fascinating. I like listening to the EVP.
Okay, let's play this last one.
Will you come up close to us? Can you do a wood knock? Will you come up close to us? Can you do a wood knock? Will you come up close to us? Can you do a wood knock?
Wow. Did y'all hear a wood knock?
I did not hear a wood knock on that occasion, but I have asked that question before and gotten a wood knock. But the really cool thing about that, when I asked that question, was, can you do a wood knock?
Tell us about your methods of when y'all go out into the woods looking for Bigfoot. Tell me what y'all do, what equipment y'all carry, and the way do y'all get into the tracking, or y'all looking for signs? Just pretend that I'm following y'all in the woods, and what would I see?
I think it's all of the above, but I think that more importantly is that you prepare yourself mentally. So when you're going in, you're on the same page. Like, you want to have a protocol that you're doing, and the protocol is that you have recorders, that your senses are very open, so we're constantly open to our surroundings. We're very in tune with nature. I think that hiking has helped us a lot, and just growing up in the forest, we know what's around us, and that's the most important thing. Like, I mean, the equipment that you have is, you want to capture recordings. We've captured other vocalizations that aren't like EVP. You want to have casting material. You want to have a tape measure for sure. I think that video is very difficult to get. I mean,
Or a
pictures are very difficult, but I mean, the other stuff that we find, it's just because we're doing a micro study, and this micro study is, we're out there almost every day. It gets to be very cold here. Like, we've had days that were 41 below zero wind chill, and we've gone out, and like, we know
Not on that day.
you did. She's been out in really negative temperatures. But basically, you want to know what the seasons look like where you're at. You want to know what the summer, spring, fall, winter, all of it. You want to know all of that. You want to know how the trees, how the weather changes the trees and how things collapse, like because of decay, all of that. And we basically just study tracks. Like, we're not trackers. I'm not a scientist. Jenny's not a scientist, but we're just really observers.
Well,
and
we did take a tracking class.
yeah, we've
to learn
taken
about
tracking classes.
Animal
So,
tracking.
like that's helped. And I just think a lot of what helps you is just being open to anything that's out there. And I think that we forget that we're energy beings. So when Jenny and I are out in the woods, I think, you have to think of yourself as an energy being. You're interacting with nature and nature's responding back to you. So, when I'm putting out a frequency that, like I it's going to sound weird, but I say a little prayer before I enter the woods. And this is because of that encounter. I now pray when I'm in the woods, and I'll say, like, God, take me to this area, or Bigfoot, take me to this area. And I ask for these things to be shown to me. And, like, we forget that we're, the act of prayer itself is you're praying, and you're sending out a frequency and something's coming back to you, and I think Jenny and I are both very spiritual people.
I think it's important to be grateful as well. Show gratitude, appreciation.
Absolutely. Bama? I know you're thinking about something.
I am. Well, my mind's really working because, I don't want to get off on the paranormal stuff too much, but, I know it interests me. And not that, paranormal equates to cemeteries and stuff a lot, but the area that we're in all the time has loads of cemeteries. And Mark, I don't even know what those cemeteries would date back to.
Well, they date back to the 18th century, and there's 229 of them.
And I know Jami and Jenny probably doesn't know this, but there's places where we camp where, oh gosh, I've camped in between two cemeteries for years, and that's where a lot of things happen to me. But something that's interesting that is, Larry, the Mark's other co-host that isn't here tonight, Larry's picked up a few pieces of equipment, EMF detectors and stuff like that, and he started using those things around some of these cemeteries with results, hasn't he, Mark?
Yes.
And it's just, and all that does is picks up electromagnetic fields or energy in the air. And something has to cause that.
Yes, we both agree with that. I mean, even dowsing is energy work.
Yep.
I thought this was interesting. I wanted to ask you this about the recordings that you made. I think people are a lot more open-minded nowadays. It really has to do with television, if you want to know the truth. But all the ghost hunting shows are really big. A little while back, there's still some that are on. Then of course the Bigfoot stuff came out. But I noticed from watching those ghost hunt shows that a lot of times those people will. It's almost like when their mind is open and they start carrying on a casual conversation about something else. That's when something happens, or that's when they see something, or they hear a noise or something. And I've always kind of thought that was kind of the way it was with us Bigfooting. I mean, going out and doing calls is one thing, but I hope I'm explaining this right. It seems like when it seems like when your mind is more open, maybe you're more receptive to things, and whatever these things are, realize that. That's about as simple as I can put it.
You know, when you're out in the forest, when you're out hiking, whether you're camping, you're, you know, bigfooting, but as long as you just being normal, you're just being yourself, you're just carrying on like you normally would. I think sometimes when you put too much into, oh, I'm going to find Bigfoot today, or I'm going to have evidence, but you can put that out there, but then, like Jamie said, forget about it and then just be yourself. You know what I mean? Like if you're around a campfire, if you're, you know, camping or whatever, and just acting normal like you always would, then sometimes you actually do have something happen, because I think when you're just open-minded being yourself, that's when things happen.
I absolutely agree with that. It seems like that whenever we go out into the woods, that we're not fooling anything out there. They already know that we're out there, and we really play on their curiosity. And so I think that that's a great strategy to have. And we've been watching this, y'all, slideshows, and y'all have been showing some amazing structures. Tell us a little bit about some of the different structures that y'all have found, and have y'all came up with any theories on them?
Well, the structures, I would say, like from the very first one that we found, we just came across, you actually showed a slide of it, and the way it was put together was like with natural twine, like it was all natural, but it was tied somehow, but not how we would tie it. It was very intricate and different the way it was done, and I just think it was fascinating how whatever made it, you know, had this natural element to it that was almost like tying it and fusing it together.
Jenny used the word fusing. It was this weird, almost infinity symbol. Like it had no beginning and had no end. Like I don't know how something could do that, but you know.
I don't know. But yeah, in Pennsylvania, it's, you know, it's illegal to have a blind, like a hunting blind made out of natural material. You have to have something that you bought and paid for to take out there and make a blind with. So I don't, in looking at it, I don't think it was something that somebody actually, like that we would make, because it's not how we would tie things. It's not some kind of tie that we would use. And, you know, I've been in Girl Scouts, so I know about knots, I guess, but, you know, it's just very different. And that was the first one we found. Yeah, but we found quite a few out there.
I mean, the size of some of the structures that we found are just, it's unbelievable how large they are. And a couple of them I've called the cathedral. Like I give them names. And there's a researcher in Canada. Her name is Leanne Carnegie. And I really appreciate the work that she puts out, because what she puts out, if you put it on a map where she found her structures and you went straight south from Canada through our area, through Shenango, through the Allegheny National Forest, it's almost like an artist. And when an artist has a signature type of art, it's very similar. And what I find fascinating about these structures is they match a lot of what Leanne and what other people in North America are showing within these structures. And they have actually started naming some of these elements within the structures. Like there's a spine, and there's push pins, and there's other ones. Like Jenny and I have actually come up with names of things that we find, and we name them too. But I mean, I really appreciate the fact that researchers are sharing their research and they're finding a common ground with all of it. And, you know, like it's our hope that other people will watch this and they'll see things that maybe they didn't notice before. And like the structure that you're showing there with the bent tree, like it's bent, that's another element. Like that's a spine. People are finding bones within the structures, like part of the structure, which is very strange. And, you know, like I can look at a structure and say, did a human build that? I can't say no that they did not, but I can look at a structure and say, does this seem like something a human would build, and for what reason? And I really can't come up with a reason. Like, I don't think Bigfoot, and I'm just assuming this, is living in these things. They're using them as a form of communication. And then, like, I listen to other people and what they have to say, like Colorado Bigfoot on his YouTube channel talks about how these structures are like a pyramid structure. And he made reference to the fact that there's energy in those type of structures, the pyramid. So he said like something about you could charge your cell phone in one of these structures. So I tried it, like I'm going to try it. Why not experiment with the field? I didn't have success with it, but there is a different feeling when you're around these structures. There is a definitely different feeling.
How many prints have y'all found out there?
How many? I don't know exactly.
We found a lot. Like a lot of them we photographed. Sometimes I didn't have casting material with me, but like when I find prints that are near the structures, that's what excites me, because that tells me that something that was barefoot near the structure, maybe potentially like this photo that you're seeing there of me measuring a print, that was near this other, it was on a peninsula outside of Shenango. So this peninsula is very hard to get to unless you cross like there's a hiking trail, then there's a railroad track, and then you have to cross into this area that I call the peninsula. And I found several structures back there, and this is a print that I found going towards the water away from the structure. But I mean, as far as prints, we found a lot, and Jenny's really, really good at like, she's way more observant than I am. She finds a lot of these prints. Sometimes she said that I would step in dog shit in the yard because I don't look down, and she's the one that looks down and finds these things. So like I've found prints that look like they have missing toes. The one that you showed there, I believe, was a handprint reaching for clams. I don't know. We just have fun with it,
Right.
I don't know.
It's an adventure.
It's an adventure.
Yeah.
It's.
Do you ever put recorders out in the area and just leave them out there?
I have, yes. What you're showing there is like trail cam photos at 2:00 in the morning. Something came up and gave this light source, and to me, it almost looked like the iris of an eye. And I had actually contacted the trail cam company to say, like, what, have you ever seen these anomalies on the camera? And they answered back, no.
It's interesting.
It is interesting, and I can't explain it. I can't explain it.
Yeah, I wonder if do you ever put out any just audio recorders now?
We have, I haven't really had a whole lot of success with leaving them out in the field. I mean, it's hard to determine, like, if you're getting like a raccoon walking up and making a noise. But I mean, we've heard, like, there are times where I wish I had my recorder with me and on me, where a lot of times it's an encounter that you have. Like Jenny and I were in the Allegheny National Forest with a group of, people that we research with, that some of them are very, very much, it's a primate only. And we did a version of the Ohio Howl, made a vocalization, and instantaneously we got a response back when I wish we were recording. We were recording. And there's a lot of times we're out at these shelters and we hear things that I wish I was recording.
That's the way it is, isn't it, Mark?
Yeah. Yeah. I guess that's one thing that we're pretty diligent about. Before we even step out of a vehicle, we hit that record button. And
yeah, it's a great idea.
Acquired knowledge of these creatures really provokes more questions and the motivation to get out into the woods and find those answers. What questions or the both of y'all looking for to find those answers for?
I'm not sure I understand the question. Like, you're asking what questions do we have? I think we have more questions the longer we do this.
Is Bigfoot Sasquatch, is it just physical, or is it physical and spiritual, or is it right? Like, there's nobody.
I'm super excited about the people that we live around, that the Bigfoot community that we're involved with. It's a good vibrational frequency of people, and they're all different. Like, we have Brian and Terry Seach, which are the if you know them, they've been doing this for a long time, and they're very much into a lot of the Dogman and all this other stuff that I don't quite understand. But what I really appreciate is that there's a large group of us that work together, and we appreciate what each of us is doing. Amy Boo is a Zuba project, and she really believes that it's a primate, and I really believe that Amy's on to something really, really exciting. And I mean, the stuff that she does and the people that she's communicating with and the people that she's getting on board, it's very, very exciting. And I always joked with Amy, she has the Zoo Book project, and I would do the Woo Book project. You know what I mean? Because I'm not afraid. Like, Jenny and I are both not afraid of being labeled the woo word, because really it's just a word. And really, I think that the responsible approach for us is to use what we have, which is the paranormal. We know it, and we know nature, so
we
know ourselves very well too. Like, that's important, that you know your limits and you know how far you can stretch yourself without sounding crazy.
Well, I would agree with that. And we've had Amy Boo on here before, and she is so knowledgeable, and working with the Olympic Project and all the different people that she works with. I also know that y'all have done some work with Mary Fabian and the Pennsylvania Bigfoot Project. Would you like to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, like, the Pennsylvania Bigfoot Project, Mary Fabian, she's a great lady, and she knows her history, and she knows the reports in Pennsylvania. And, like, you have different groups. Like, Jenny and I are basically our own group, but I help run the Pennsylvania Sasquatch Research, which was started by Tony Merkel and, Sean Forker back in the day. But it's shared information. So the great thing is that in Pennsylvania, the researchers really share, and Mary's great at that. Like, she gave me a report about a Bigfoot encounter that happened 30 years prior to our encounter, where a man had it was strange because he was with his beagle and found these tracks, and I was in an area almost identical to where this guy had found these tracks, and I found tracks. So, like, the sharing is very important, and Mary's really good with that, and Brian Seach is great with that, and our friend Sparky, Jim Sparks, he's our main dude that helps us here at Shenango, and lots of good people.
I think it's important that we do share, and unfortunately, in this community, there is a lot of jealousy and envy with groups and individuals, and that's our whole purpose for this podcast, is to bring people on and look at things with different perspectives, different angles that maybe might spark something if you find a piece of evidence in the field. And I just really commend y'all for that, for going out and sharing what you find.
Yeah, thank you. Jenny and I say this, but we've never really met anyone in the Bigfoot community that we've really said, I don't like this person. I think we find good, and we like everybody that we've been involved with. And that's I kind of unheard of. I haven't really heard other people say that, because, maybe for ourselves, we don't take ourselves, the ego's out the window. We don't really worry about whether people believe us or not. Like before we came on the podcast, we said, let's just try to be as sincere as we can. I don't really care if somebody thinks we're crazy because this is what we do. You know, we're going to do it our way. We're staying in our own lane. I'm not in competition with the next person. I really just want to learn from other people, and hopefully that I can inspire other people. Both of us.
Well, I really like that.
Yeah.
Bama, you
I
got
wanted,
anything?
well, I wanted to say this, and every time we have guests on, I always think about this because really, though, when you listen to people, you try to relate back to yourself. I mean, I'm sure all listeners are like that too. But me, a lot of my thinking and stuff really has to do with I was raised a religious person, uh, and so a lot of my things had to do with what what my religious belief boundaries would allow me to believe. And I'm sure that there's a lot of people out there that relate to that too. But but as you're in it more, you really start to, broaden your thinking a little bit. Uh, and it's funny, I wanted to ask him this because somebody in the chat would ask this, so I have to ask it. And that is, uh, we get to talking about orbs a lot of times, don't we, Mark?
Yeah.
Uh, and we've been up at Land Between the Lakes before and have actually, ironically enough, been in the middle of a cemetery. And we've seen some lights before that I could have said it was a highway in the distance or a bridge or something like that. But when you speak to guys like Barry Browning and guys along that line that have seen orbs and some people down in Florida, we always ask the question to guys, especially paranormal researchers, have you ever seen the lights or the orb?
Well, Jamie and I actually have seen orbs with ghost hunting, like at Hillview and Mansfield. But actually, in the woods, we have seen, actually at Beaver Creek, we were camping, and there was a bunch of us that, were like, oh, we're just going to go out. Let's go out and do some Bigfooting, or let's go, hiking at night. And we came across this lock. It was, if you're familiar with Beaver Creek, and we actually saw orbs, and we were like, it was just really cool to see orbs, especially at night, and they were like a greenish, kind of like a white greenish color. Yeah.
When y'all go out, do you take like video cameras or anything like that where you might be able to try to capture it on video?
Actually, we don't. We just have our cameras. We don't have any video cameras. So we're basically just taking like phones and, if we have the audio recorders. And, I know some people have, like you mentioned, the EMF detectors, which we don't have, but our Sparky does. So Sparky's got a FLIR, he's got a thermal, he's got all kinds of cool stuff. So it's fun when he goes, because then you get to use all the fun gadgets.
Have you found any common denominators that has helped you connect the dots in the field?
I never really had anybody ask that question. Common denominator.
Well, the structures, like the ones with the spines and then the teepee ones, like we found several.
I mean, the common denominator between like ghost hunting and Bigfoot is they're both unknowns. So both of them, for us, we've had success in that we've connected with the unknown with ghost hunting. I also feel like we've connected with the unknown with Bigfoot. And then really, when you think about it, like the prayer that I said to my dad, that's a huge unknown. The unknown part of it is I feel like I was responded to via that prayer, via that consciousness or that connection to higher whatever. I feel like maybe that's a final frontier of humans and our evolution and understanding the world around us. You know, like Einstein said, it's all think in terms of energy. Tesla, you know, if we think of Bigfoot as just a physical being, it's just a physical being. There's a tree in the woods. It's a physical thing.
Yeah,
But
but
if you
we all
think of
have
the spirituality of the tree and think
right.
of Bigfoot as spiritual too, there's maybe something larger that you're giving life to.
Yeah, because we're spiritual and beings. Everything is, even a tree is, like, because we all have energy and we all have frequency. Everything does.
That's a interesting way of looking at it, and it's true. One thing that I wanted to ask you, Jami, was you surprised when you were named the 2020 Male Researcher of the Year?
I mean, yes. Yeah, it's, you know, like there's a lot of people out there. It's just a title. You know, there's a lot of people out there way more deserving than I am. It was just a moment in time. It's just the title. But really,
I think it's pretty awesome.
There are a lot of people out there that are deserving of way more than me. One of my favorites is Shane Corson.
Yeah, absolutely. The knowledge of him and the whole team of the Olympic Project.
Yes.
And what they have accomplished. And it's been a real pleasure to me just to have private talks with Shane. And because, you know, a lot of things you just don't put everything out there.
No.
And it's just amazing what they are accomplishing out there.
I mean, I think that they keep a lot of stuff private too, which is great. I mean, they share a lot. You know, a lot of people know what's going on, but I think that they comfortably keep to themselves what they need to keep to themselves, because, you know, like, you don't want to put it completely all out there, which you know, you want to get patterns with science. Like, he's got a very scientific mind, so you want these patterns and you want science to get on board, and that's really good. We're the same way. I mean, I think we have a bigger challenge ahead of us with the woo element. We're not afraid of a challenge, but it's very possible for science to wrap its mind around a lot of the quantum stuff that's going on. And it's great to hear people like Ron Moorhead come out and, you know, like, talk about quantum Bigfoot. That's awesome.
Yeah. I had the opportunity to talk to Ron, I guess about a month ago. He was speaking at a conference in Gatlinburg, and we had a great conversation. And he gave a great presentation. And I think it's good that whenever people have different ideas and different theories, that we listen to them. And so many people just seems like, well, that's not what I think. But I think it's important that we listen to everybody's viewpoint and perspective.
Yeah. Definitely. I mean, yeah. I mean, I really appreciate when people talk about Bigfoot, and Jenny and I both would never make fun of somebody about the way they think. You know, like, we might listen to something and hear something that resonates with us, and it sparks another idea, and that other idea might spark something else. And it's always fascinating. Like, Bigfoot can't get boring. Like, it just can't.
That's a true statement. We're getting close to running out of time. Bama, have you got any final questions?
Well, it's funny because, you know, I'm sitting here listening to them, and if you think way back when you first got started in all this, you know, things that you probably think are logical now just because of the knowledge you've gained, probably aren't that far-fetched. But if you go back to when anybody that's in the Bigfoot world, you know, you usually start out thinking it's a flesh and blood, North American, very elusive, intelligent creature out there, But the longer you stay in it, you meet very intelligent, logical people that are science based, that kind of help you understand that maybe it is a little, maybe it could be something a little more. I would love to hear Mr. Moorhead speak, because gosh, I've listened to everything he's done, and some of the things when you listen to him tell those stories, you just, I mean, there has to be something to it. I mean, some of the things he talks about, and I'm sure a lot of the things that y'all, they're just, there really has to be something to it. That part really fascinates me. But it's like I said, when you really are. Each person has, I'll leave it at that. Each person has their own limitations. We have some people get downright mad at you if you start talking about, a Bigfoot maybe cloaking or doing some of those things. But, I always try to stay pretty open-minded,
Yeah, we don't know. I didn't have, each person that you meet is a different reality. You know what I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
Everyone that you meet is their own reality. So I didn't walk in that person's shoes to know if they saw something cloak or they, anything. So I'm going to listen, and I really appreciate what you just said about, Ron Moorhead. And I would like for more people to be open-minded to the fact that it's okay to be not right. It's okay to be wrong, in the way you're thinking. I could listen to this podcast 5 years from now and then think to myself, man, I was wrong. And I'm okay with it.
Yeah. You have to be honest with yourself.
I would love to kind of have them back and kind of even dabble off into and do we call them UFOs anymore? We're not even doing that anymore now. We're calling them
UAPs.
Yeah, unidentified aerial phenomena.
Right.
Is what they're called now. But I think it would be interesting to kind of, get off into that a little bit, because there's so many of those things that coincide. That people have so many encounters and experiences that coincide with, because we're talking about Ron Moorhead, things along that line that just, I don't know how we'd ever be able to explain it. If you're a religious person, which I am, and I believe that, one day I'm going to meet my creator, that's when I get to learn all the answers to all the questions.
That would be great.
I guess that's what I always say. I've got lots of questions. Maybe that's why I'm living so long, is because he knows I got lots of questions. But yeah, I find that I'd love to do a show on that sometime, Mark.
Tell us what y'all are working on right now. Let's look for the a month from right now. What projects are y'all working on?
Well, the exciting thing that's coming up is we're attending Creekfoot, which is something that Amy Boo, Tina Pasternak Sams, and I kind of started, but it's equivalent to the Beachfoot that out in California, but this is for East Coast researchers. So it's a time when researchers can come together and in a relaxed state, just talk about your research and have a relaxing, fun weekend. And that's what we're doing. Our next thing that we're doing, which is coming up like in 2 weeks.
That's good. It's great to get with other researchers and to be able to bounce ideas. One of my two of my research partners, Kane Michael
Kane is
and
awesome.
and Matthias Tipton. We have done a lot of research together. We've gone up to Salt Fork and had all kind of activity. And for people that haven't met them or met people like them, you know, it's just great to get out there and bounce ideas. And has this happened? Or, you know, what did you think when you came across that? You know.
You know, I have a cool story about Kane. It was at Creekfoot, and I was like walking the creek early in the morning, and I had my dog with me, and I think I was peeing. I might have been peeing in the creek, and I looked up and I saw this thing walking, and I'm like, "Holy crap!" That like far away it looked big, but it was Kane. I finally met him. But yeah, we bounced ideas off of one another, and like really, that's the whole thing. You get to appreciate other researchers, and you nailed it. He is really good. The other show I liked was the RPG.
Yes.
He's dead on too. It's all about play, and you know when you're like in the forest and you're not thinking about Bigfoot or you're doing something else, that's when stuff happens. But that was a great episode.
Yeah. Well, I'm just going to say anytime that y'all can get out with Kane and Matthias, I'd be jumping on that because they're both they fit together like a puzzle and they work really great as a team. And I just can't say enough good things about them.
You're right, they are.
Well, Bama, do you have any last questions?
Well, you know, what's next for 'em? I mean, you know, what can you do next beyond what you're doing? How are you going to step it up a notch?
Well, I think we kind of have. Like, there's a little bit of like, there's an element that we don't really talk about to the Bigfoot community, but I will share it with you. So, when you're thinking of the unknown, and you think about Bigfoot as an alien, you know, you might as well cover every angle, right? So Jenny and I have started doing CSETI protocol. Do you know what CSETI is?
No, sir.
Okay, Dr. Stephen Greer does this protocol that is used to call in UFOs. So
Or UAPs. Yeah.
UAPs, whatever you want to call them. So Jenny
Yeah.
and I have been doing this thing with a group of friends that we are very comfortable with. And we've been going to this meadow at Shenango and we play these tones. There's a whole protocol to it. So
Right.
I don't even know how to explain it without sounding crazy, but you know, Pennsylvania is well versed in stories of Bigfoot and UFOs in conjunction with one another. So this whole protocol with Dr. Stephen Greer is about how would you say it? Connecting.
Well, communicating.
It's communicating with extraterrestrial energy. So there's an app that you can get on your phone. There's an app for everything, and it's called ET Contact Tool. So it's basically an app that gives you all the different protocol that you can use. And what we do is we sit in this meadow, we do a meditation. After the meditation, we play these tones. So these tones are known UFO recordings, or they're also mathematical equations to crop circles. So it's crop circles that have been put to music. So when you play them out, you're supposed to watch the sky and see if things happen. And honestly, we've had things happen.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Like what?
Like
ahead,
when
Jenny.
we've seen quite a few, but you know, you're just watching the stars, you're just looking out there and you'll see like a bright light. You think, okay, is that a plane? What's coming? You see it, and all of a sudden it'll stop and then bam, it takes off. And you know that's not a plane doing that.
I mean, the protocol gives you known, like you're aware of what this, you know, Space Center looks like. You're aware of what satellites look like. You're aware of shooting stars. But when you start seeing things that are not those things, and you've actively, consciously tried to connect using this protocol, then you know that you're onto something. And, you know, like the group of people that we've gone with, the one guy that was there with us, he was kind of a skeptic. And we did this protocol, we played these tones, and this light appeared above us and started going across the sky above us. And this guy was so nervous about it. He got on the phone, and his father's a Baptist minister. He called his father in 84, Pennsylvania, and said, "Dad, I'm watching this thing flying through the sky above my head."
He was excited about it. He could tell his dad. So it was pretty cool.
Wow.
But you know what? Like, okay, let's say this. What if everything that we do as human beings is called human initiation? So you're initiating contact with something, be it ghost, be it Bigfoot, or be it UFOs. It's a frequency, it's a vibrational frequency, it's tuning and receiving. So you think of yourself as a tuner and receiver. So our whole thing is like we're covering all bases. You know,
Right.
We're trying to. And we can be wrong, or we might be right. But we've had things happen.
Pretty cool.
Wow. That's fantastic. Bama, do you have any final thoughts?
No, I just think it's a fantastic attitude to have. Because we do get kind of stuck in a rut every once in a while with our thinking and things like that. Mark,
Well, thank you. Thank you.
I know I'm going to have to break out my tinfoil hat here.
That's awesome.
See?
That's cool.
That's
You
cool.
might need it. It's
Hey.
like coconut oil.
Shit.
I like it.
That's cool. You get better reception.
Well, Jamie and Jenny, do y'all have any final thoughts that you would like to leave with our audience?
I would say just for everybody to just be themselves. And if I can add this to, I'm an avid watcher of Gaia TV, so I highly recommend it.
And here, my recommendation for everybody is don't be afraid to experiment with the field. That's the main thing. Like, don't care if you look crazy. You know, you're only on this planet, and I learned this with my mom and dad passing away. And maybe that's what I'm supposed to learn about this whole thing, is that you're only here a short amount of time. So try to learn as much as you can through your own filter and through your own frequency.
Yeah, just be yourself. Just authentically be yourself. Yeah.
That's excellent advice. And I would just like to say it's really been a privilege meeting y'all.
Yeah,
Y'all are
Thank you.
y'all are
Thank you.
such humble people, and it's refreshing to meet people. You know, we don't even have to have the same ideas. Y'all have sparked all kind of questions for me to think about, to maybe to try out in the woods. And it's been a great show, and we just really want to thank y'all for coming on and being so inclusive and sharing with us. It's been a blessing, and y'all such fantastic people, and it's been our honor to meet y'all.
Oh, and likewise, thank you.
Yes,
Thank
thank
you
you.
both for being very nice
Yes,
to us
thank you
and
for
kind,
having us.
for
Thank you.
even thinking of asking us to come on.
We
Well,
appreciate it.
Well, we're much obliged, and so we will see everybody again, same bat time, same bat channel, and I'm sure that we will be live the next time we come on. And if you have questions that you would like to ask the Kings, put them in the comment section, and I'm sure that they would be more than happy to answer everyone's questions. And we will see y'all again. Night, night, footers.
Right.
Hey, good night.
Beast TV would like to welcome all of our new Facebook members. Be sure to check out our pictures and videos of possible evidence. And if you haven't checked out the Files tab, there is a wealth of information that you may find beneficial. If you would like to support Beast TV, check out our gear. We have coffee mugs, face masks, gaiters, shirts, and tank tops. The link is pinned at the top of the comment section. Everything is always marked down 20%, so come check out our junk. We want to thank all of our new subscribers and our faithful followers. Also, be sure to check out our field evidence videos and our sister channel, Beast of the Woods. That's Larry's channel. If you want to help us out, make sure that you are subscribed. Click the thumbs up button, ring the bell, and leave us a comment. We would love to hear from you. Thanks again to each of you for watching, and we will see you again. Same bat time, same bat channel. Night night, footers.
This has been a Sawdust production.